Crow Country is an indie survival horror masterpiece that was released on May 9th of 2024 and developed by a small studio called SFB Games. SFB Games is a small company created by brothers Adam and Tom Vian, who just so happened to be more known for a silly little game called Snipper Clips, which is honestly quite the jump between genres. Everything about Crow Country was inspired by games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil, so it's very close to home. Alright, without further ado, make sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button, because it's story time. As we go all the way back to an ancient time, otherwise known as 1990, we meet our purple-haired protagonist, and her name is Mara Forrest. Or, sorry, Special Agent Forrest, and she is seemingly driving in the middle of nowhere. As we arrive at an undisclosed location, we find a missing persons report on the hood of the car. Apparently, a company owner named Edward Crow went missing, and was last seen by someone named Mr. Tolman at the Crow Country estate. There's also a picture attached, and yeah, he's pretty polygonal. We then open our trunk to attain some handgun ammo. With these newly acquired bullets, we blast the lock off this gate that we're totally supposed to be entering and acquire a pocket light, before seeing that we've actually arrived at this abandoned amusement park simply called Crow Country. To the left, we can find a medkit in this trash can. Then we enter the restroom to save the day. We snag some more ammo and discover an excerpt from a magazine that talks about an aspiring paranormal photographer named Arthur Mole. Beyond magazine states that a Polaroid he took was unconvincing. Back out, we break various crates to attain another medkit, an antidote which heals poison, and a large medkit which heals us fully and cures status effects. We kick this vending machine and nothing happens. But we see a note on a clipboard that alludes to a bronze key that was dropped into the fairy pond. We take another medkit and some shotgun shells as we set foot into Fairy Tale Town. We shoot this crate and grab an antidote to see the numbers 2106 written in blood. We pick up this laser sight and figure out that the bronze key is actually for this little mailbox. Up to the swan boats, there's nothing we can do currently, but there is a memo that tells us that the park is owned by Edward Crow. He named it after himself, and that not much is known about him other than his exceptional opulence. Welp, we snag some more shells, find a grenade, and try to enter that code we saw earlier before realizing that 0 doesn't exist. There's also a Polaroid camera on the ground with a bloodied photo of two mangled figures in the background. We find a concussed man leaned up against a barrel as he claims that he was attacked, and his name is Arthur Mole. If you don't remember, don't worry, it's fine. Just pay some more attention next time. Arthur Mole is the photographer that was mentioned in that magazine from earlier. Since his leg is bleeding pretty bad, we spare a medkit to patch him up and take his sorry ass back to the car, because let's just trust this random guy. Why not? Arthur also left a note on the ground that simply says, Tree Lady 3184. So, we dig in the trash, take this medkit, and read this tip off the wall that states how there is a random chance to decapitate enemies with a headshot. Yeah, that's just straight up Resident Evil. What can I say, really? Peak inspires peak. Continuing forward, the construction for something called Cosmic Future was supposed to be finished this year. However, we find an ever so lovely map and stumble upon a very significant memo.
If you're looking for the machine chain, one of the swan boat people took it to fix a broken swan. I told them not to take it, and they took it anyway. You can't reason with swan boat people.
You know, if there's really anything to take from this video, just remember that you can't reason with Swanboat people. You just can't. Alright, we enter the utility corridor as some friends join the party. We toss a grenade for our troubles, and as we analyze the bodies, Mara says that she feels bad for killing it, but she'd also feel bad for leaving it alive too. A little more forward is a random crate that's full of gold ore. The next room we find is called the Crow Lounge, and it's legit just a save room, but it's got its very own cozy charm. We obtain a medkit and a grenade, then find a letter that was directed to Edward Crow in relation to an incident where a 15-year-old girl named Elaine Marshall was injured. Since the incident took place in the park during working hours, the court requires his presence. Neat! We save our game at the fireplace and look at a memo on the wall that informs us on how to enter the fairy pond area. We need to say the phrase, "Hear me, O great fairy of the fairest forest," and I guess also fuck Diego. Back to the lovely tree lady, we input the code 3184 and use our deductive abilities to enter her phrase. You know, I'm pretty sure there's a typo there, but we'll be alright. As we step foot into the fairy forest, there's a small sign that says, "Those who seek the truth, stare into the pure reflective water of our fairy pond." So we attempt to look at the water, but it's too filthy. The next call to action is to pull this curtain aside to reveal a pump mechanism. them. We then pull this lever as gas starts to leak, and we find the control box to turn off the ventilation. Since that poisoned us, we use an antidote and tighten this valve multiple times to get the dial at the correct amount of pressure. We pull the lever once again, but this time the water turns clear. I snag this antidote from the corner and shoot this now visible target in the water as the fairy emerges to gift us the bronze key. There's also a weird little room over here, and inside there's a hidden panel on the wall that reveals a cybernetic crow with the magnum laser in its eye socket. We take some shells and use the bronze key on the mailbox to open the door for this little house. In here, it's not quite what you'd expect. There's a strange hole that's making a sound, a flamethrower with no gas, a crane mechanism with no crank, and a bucket with a shotgun laser. There's also some handgun bullets along with some gasoline before finding a document titled the Tolman Records. Apparently, they were using this location as an excavation site, but a paper trail started to form, and they started asking too many questions, so they had to go. Anyway, we put the gas in the fuel tank, but before we can do anything else, we go back to Crow Country to pry off this wooden panel. We then press this button that reveals more buttons. I pick up this medkit and press this button to rotate the animatronic crow, which exhibits an empty slot on its back. Over here is, oh, hi friend. We use the bronze key on this gate and find ourselves in the haunted hilltop. And may I just say, this place looks so cool. I just love how this game looks, honestly. The art direction is amazing. Anyway, to our left is a silly little dungeon with various cells. One for a mermaid, a snake, a cyclops, and finally, a wolf. We then take off this bloodied sheet to unveil a shitty desktop computer. The last thing in here is this Iron Maiden, so naturally we go inside and press this button as it closes and rotates. We then find ourselves in this strange corridor with a locked door that won't budge, but we obtain some magnum ammo and see a staff memo that discloses how there's a power switch for 4 elevators in Tolman's office, and that it's on the complete opposite side of the park, meaning that we got some exploring to do. Back outside, we attain more shells and the haunted hilltop map. A little more forward, we meet someone named Julie, and she's trying to get through this door. Mara offers to look for another way around, so we do just that and descend down into the crypt. This gate swiftly traps us in before seeing someone pointing a shotgun at us through this coffin. How quaint. Referring to the compass on the floor, we look at the names on these tombstones and use the first letters of their names to determine which direction they face. So Estelle faces east, Solomon Wesselby faces southwest, Solina faces south, and finally Norbert Easley faces northeast. With all of the gravestones in place, we try and take this shotgun before realizing that it's just a plastic decoration. We take some gasoline and a medkit before the chocolate lady from SpongeBob busts through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. We blast her shit, acquire some more ammo, and open this gate to go up these steps with the reassuring presence of a save room. There's a memo that mentions how someone left the shotgun in the submarine, and it also says, shark, 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 dolphin. Hell yeah. This will all make more sense in a little bit. For now, we hit the save and step foot into a room with a conveyor belt that's breaking down gold. We take some ammo and gas, then go back to get a large medkit and a map before opening the door for Julie. She says that there's work to be done and that she needs help with something. We agree and help her clear off this table. Julie goes to look at the holding cell, and on the table is an array of evidence for injuries of the teenage girl, Elaine Marshall. We also figure out that Julie Barron is a locally feared lawsuit attorney and is trying to hold Edward Crowe accountable for his negligence. In the corner is a safe, and the code for it is the year that Selena died. So referring to the headstone, we put in the code 1872 as we obtain the crank handle. Arriving in the holding cell, we see Julie and grab some shells before conversing once more. Julie states how this cell is the location where Elaine Marshall got attacked by one of those mutated things and got Crow Country shut down. Mara says that she needs to find Edward Crowe's office in the northeast corner of the park, as Julie informs us to pass through the haunted manor. We lift up this floor panel and press this button that unlocks the cell door and grab this large medkit in the corner. Back through Silent Hill, we shoot this barrel, snag this ammo, and see this animatronic bird that hoots 5 times before stopping. So, we ring this bell 5 times as we enter the haunted manor. This interior reminds me a bit of Mario 64, and I think that's pretty cool. A telephone starts to ring, and upon answering, someone says,
You came back. I'll admit, I'm glad Glad to see you're up and about. Oh, the tenacity of youth.
Well, that was pretty fucking weird, but we mash on the piano as Nosferatu starts feeling freaky. This devil painting has the numbers 1020 and 1115, so we use the crank to set the times 1020 and 1115 on the clocks as we obtain the red gemstone from the painting. Next, we inspect this candle painting called Harmony Will Fade, and see that fade is entirely capitalized. Back to the piano, we input the keys F, A, D, E to open the safe and acquire some shells, along with some handgun bullets on the floor. Inspecting yet another painting called Song in a Cage, we input the keys C, A, G, E, but this time we find a little mushroom man that wants us to use his mushroom magic to grant us a wish. Before Mara gets the chance to answer, he insists on improving the range of the flamethrower that we totally have right now. Oh wait, never mind. The final painting is The Melody of the Dead, and you get the gist by now. However, behind this painting is another room. Oh yeah, these zombie fellas are called guests, by the way. Regardless, we kill both of them, snag a grenade, and open this door to stumble upon a funny little situation. Luckily, Mara knows how to mind her own damn business. So we take some bullets and see a paper that shows the correct order for those cells in the dungeon, along with the name Ophelia for the crypt. Next, there's a videotape in the television, so we press play.
This is a message for Edward Crow from Douglas Pike. Edward, we've been friends for over 30 years. You entrusted me with running your theme park, a task I've always relished. You've always shown me kindness and always paid me well for my work. However, I can no longer remain silent. Edward Crow, your crimes have not gone unnoticed, nor your sins go unpunished. As for Elaine Marshall, I hope she never forgives us, for none of us deserve it.
Out of the room, we pick up some shells, shoot this bear trap, pull this lever, and arrive at the door to Crow's office. Yeah, it's actually electrified. We check on this woman as she informs us that her head hurts, and she threw up. Apparently something had grazed her, and she doesn't even know what it was. We give her an antidote to treat her wound, as the woman reveals that her name is Natalie Crow, and she is Edward Crow's daughter. She's actually the one who filed the missing persons report from the beginning of our adventure. We then learn that someone named Detective Harrison James was supposed to take this case, but he was having car problems, so they let Mara pick up the scraps. We get a grenade and some bullets as we proceed up these stairs into the theater. We pull on the pulley as the curtain rises and see that the fairy is somehow here. I acquire a grenade and some shells before killing this little shit. Subsequently, a phone call catches our attention.
Hello?
I had no idea what the roots were for. How could I have known?
What roots? What are you talking about?
There are 7 in total, and I cut them down. Cut them open.
You cut them open? What?
All but one. We left one intact. For posterity, we thought. What a farce.
We look to the wall and see a memo that mentions how the 7 sea mermaids use the same kind of battery as the giant crow outside. With our newly found wisdom, we snag some gasoline and bust these doors open as we arrive back in Fairy Tale Town. Since our next objective is rather vague, allow me to help. Back up to the swan boats, you can place this red gem into the swan's mouth. With the ability to control this animatronic, we safely guide it to the opening in the fence. We take the chain off its neck and its head falls off. But hey, it's our chain now. Back at the dig site, we kill this gloopy piece of shit, use the crank handle on this pipe valve to release some resin, then put the chain on the crane mechanism as the hook retracts. And finally, we activate the flamethrower as the resin melts, so we can attain the woeful mask. Into the mushroom's mouth we go. In here, we take a medkit, move this velvet rope aside, and meet this mushroom king at this table who doesn't want to dine alone. There's a puzzle here where the king mentions a mushroom lady that he invited to dinner, so we find the correlating mushroom at the table and keep repeating this process until he ultimately thanks us for dining with him, as he opens up and gives us a pistol upgrade. Huzzah! With all of that out of the way, a cop with a pink bicycle blocks our path. He introduces himself as Police Detective Harrison James, which is weird because that is the name of the man that was supposed to be here in the first place. He says that some kid slashed the tires on his car, and that he borrowed the bike to get here. Harrison also reveals that he was supposed to meet with a woman named Natalie Crow. We tell him that we saw her outside of Crow's office. He tells us to go home before he leaves, as Mara says,
I really didn't think he was going to show up.
she definitely did that shit. The phone begins to ring once again.
Hello?
The first guest emerged from the pool 2 years ago. I've been thinking. It must have been on purpose. The timing, I mean.
2 years ago?
1988. It must have been some sort of intersection. A critical pivoting point, if you will. Late enough that we've developed the necessary infrastructure. Early enough so as to not be too late, I suppose.
Returning to the haunted hilltop, we hang up the woeful mask as the entrance to Witchwood is now open. As we enter, we're met with intense gusts of wind and a hedge maze. We need to kick these statues to get to the center. And once we arrive, Mara reaches into the filthy water so we can obtain a trident. All of the statues retract and shit starts to get scary, so we make our way back to use our trusty old crank on these bars. We get pump faked as we gain access to a new location called the Ocean Kingdom. I pick up this antidote and go a little further. We advance into a submarine for the ride Nemo's Adventure. There's some handgun ammo, even more ammo, a medkit, and a large medkit. The rules of the sea enlightens us on how this game works, but if you remember, all we have to do is shark, 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 dolphin. For now, we have obtained my beloved shoddy once again. This big asshole pokes us, but we get an antidote, some shells, another antidote, and finally, some bullets. Heading into Sunken Treasure is a really cool arcade. However, there's a weird guy that doesn't want our light in his eyes for some reason. So we turn off the light as Mara introduces herself, and the man reveals that his name is Marvin Trumbull, or Marv for short. He claims that him and Edward Crow are business partners, and that he's also looking for Mr. Crow. Marv leaves, and a note on one of the machines catches our attention. It says, set the arcade game scores. And we'll come back to this in a minute. Into the unpromising void, we stumble across the back rooms for an antidote and a map, where the telephone rings once more.
The worst part is, I never really wanted the gold. I didn't really care. It was my father who wanted it. He made the decision to buy the land. Years later, when he died, he left all of Crow Country in my care. I had no choice but to come back, finish what he started.
Wait, the theme park belongs to your father?
No, Crow Country is the name of the land. This land.
Back over yonder, holy shit, wasting no time, we put our trusty shoddy to good use. Into the unknown corridor is Neptune's palace, which is some kind of restaurant. Moreover, Crow calls once again.
Hello?
Natalie, my daughter, she's here, isn't she?
Yes, she's looking for you. She filed a missing persons report with the police.
I told her not to. I thought I'd convinced her not to. Listen, can you get her out of here? Get her to leave. Now.
Mr. Crow, she got hurt. She was attacked.
I see.
You can grab some shells off of this table and tap on the glass tubes of all of these little sea monsters so that they all face the center. The chest opens and we attain the silver key. I snag some more bullets before stumbling upon our next puzzle, and it's actually this soda machine. Referring to that totem pole of fruit, we put grape soda, lime soda, pineapple soda, and finally strawberry soda, resulting in this board flipping and showing us a code for a wooden bureau in the Crow Lounge. Hell yeah. So back to the old house, we input the code 8891 to obtain the map of secrets. It shows us all of the items that were missing on the map. It's honestly a very beneficial tool. At any rate, we utilize that silver key on this door. Inside, a construction worker and an antidote await our arrival. Mara introduces herself cordially, but the man is fixated on the fact that Mara's hair is purple. This is Tolman, the root excavation guy. He plays dumb and tells us to go home. He's rather unhelpful, so we move on to another puzzle that involves these years on the calendar. We start with the 1350 tape titled Plague. As the letter F flashes on the screen, we repeat this process in order to acquire the letters A, C, and E so that we can put them on the piano keys. Inputting F, A, C, E, this panel opens and we pull the lever, which makes these lights green, meaning that the power for the elevators should be restored. Before our departure, Tolman warns Mara not to go down there and that she'll regret it. Thankfully, she doesn't give a care, so we go down anyway. It is extremely dark and there are monsters galore. We go left into the break room and lay eyes upon a memo that alludes to a code from an old license plate that's gone missing. You can pull up this lever titled Root Access as the light turns green, and this fuckface plops in on the table. This guy is actually pretty silly, forcing us to dodge his little slide and slap move. Sadly, it could never be enough to stop my beloved shoddy. And as its disgusting flesh melts, a license plate becomes visible with the numbers 2663. We snag a medkit and some shells before putting the code 2663 into this door. I kill this guest, take some shells, and pull this lever to operate the minecart. Once our fun ride ends, we put this little fella out of his misery and enter the next room to finally obtain the underground area map. Taking a look, this area is just one linear rectangle. This diagram right here shows a picture of the fairy with a golden key in her head. This room contains another map and this ancient generator, and we have no idea what it's powering, so we obviously shoot it. A little further, Mara runs into Marv and Tolman, for those green tubes are the roots that Mr. Crow was referring to. Marv says that they're made out of copper and they extract the purest 24 karat gold there is. Also, I guess that Marv and Tolman got beef, like a lot. Tolman outs Marvin by telling us that he's on the run from the Brazilian authorities and that he came back here to hide. Marvin explains that him and Crow were running an operation where they were selling the gold that was being extracted from the roots, and that the government caught on. Apparently the gold that was being scooped out of the roots was too pure and too abundant, and this was a bad thing because Crow wanted to be discreet. So Marvin informs us that all of his assets got seized and he's here to drag Crow down with him. With all of that out of the way, we exit the room, take some bullets, and we go up the southeast elevator. On the way to the main plaza, we use the silver key on this door that gives us access to this little gift shop. We toss another grenade and find a memo titled Gifts for Natalie. First is a haunted hilltop stuffed toy. Second is a classic Crow Country rubber doll. Third is a Fairy Tale Town action figure. So looking around, we see that the haunted hilltop toy is $10, the rubber doll is $5.50, and the action figure is $4.25. So we add 10, $5.50, and $4.25 to get $19.75. With that, we input 1975 into the register and obtain the Magnum. Out of this door, we go directly across and use our trusty bronze key to enter this weird train room that'll be more important in a little bit. Back to the car, we see that Arthur is alive, and we open the trunk of this red car to retrieve some running shoes. We're really on some Pokemon shit. We drop by the theater and blast the fairy's head before returning to the arcade and using the silver key to restore the power. Referring to that memo that we saw earlier, there's actually a diagram that was in the Crow Lounge that tells us exactly what numbers to set the scores to. The mermaid game is at 1, the dolphin game is at 2, the boat game is at 4, the shooting game is at 8. Once done, the change machine gives us the data disc. All the way back to Haunted Hilltop, we revisit our favorite dungeon and insert the disc into the computer. We put 2 arms, 1 head, and 2 eyes to open the mermaid's cell to acquire a bottle of acid. Since the other cells really hold no other significance, your next objective is to return to the crypt and open the coffin of Ophelia Pike to get a medkit upgrade. Returning to the locomotive room, we use the disc and get the flamethrower. With everything done, we arrive at the Ocean Kingdom yet again. However, this time around, we see a set of footprints leading through this door. We pick up a medkit and some bullets before stumbling upon this giant crate, and as it opens, Julie is inside. Mara pulls her out, and Julie insists that somebody grabbed her from behind and threw her in there. She was unable to identify who it was, but at least we know that his hands were sweaty. That's still like really fucked up, by the way, but at least Julie's cool about it, I guess. I use the elevator to go underground and find a room where we can fill this bottle with acid. A little moreover, Detective James appears and claims that he ran into Natalie and that she was acting a little strange. He's also trying to stop these fumes, so we help by inspecting the chimney and see that the total gas pressure must be at exactly 50. Next, we insert the floppy disk and set the sulfur dioxide to 14, the cobalt chloride to 16, and finally set the cobalt to 17 to pull this lever and stop the gas. Since we stop the fumes, we send back to the Ocean Kingdom and use our flamethrower to burn down this door. In this storage closet, we take a large medkit and some bullets before the little mushroom man upgrades the Magnum. Splendid! Oh yeah, almost forgot that we can now get that flamethrower upgrade from earlier as well now. Well, we make our way to the theater and melt the fairy's head so that we can acquire the golden key. I hit this nasty juke move before using the key on Crow's office. Inside, he's nowhere to be found, but we can see that he has a degree in biochemistry before the telephone catches our attention.
No, I never had a plan for all the gold. In fact, it quickly became a problem. We couldn't sell it, basically. Not without arousing a lot of unwanted attention. We had too much of it, too quickly. And the shape, those cylinders, well, it's not the normal process, is it? But then I had an idea. What if it was the normal process? Or what if we pretended it was? So Marvin and I devised a plan. We just needed a site, a disused gold mine. Marv found one in South America, in Brazil. And you know what? It worked. For a while, at least.
Back out, we see Natalie and she's concerned that Mara will kill her father. She begs for his life before we enter the control room and pull this lever. Fortunately, this silly guy shows up, so I fucking shoot him. Before we confront Crow, I ask Julie for some help, so she operates our little boat ride for us. We are abruptly halted by Monstro before finding out that the chests are control boxes. Pressing this button allows for the purple-haired mermaid to come close enough for you to obtain the large battery. We go to check on Julie and oh, well, it's time to go down this elevator and charge this battery. And if you somehow remember, you insert the battery into the back of the Crow. We press this button and just like that, he walked out of my life. The Crow out of the way, we use its elevator, and it's pretty grim and hellish down here. So we hit this button and that button to proceed onward. Unfortunately, we discover Detective Harrison's dead body surrounded by a pool of blood. Continuing, Tolman attempts to block our path, and as Mara is explaining how Harrison was shot, Marv shows up ready to cause some trouble. As we try and negotiate, the vent begins to rattle. Oh hey, it's Julie. With Marv now dead, we help Julie out of the vent, as she tells us that something grabbed her and dragged her into the vent, but it didn't try to kill her. Tolman chimes in and informs us that guests are angry, but don't actually want to cause any harm. They simply just lack the ability to communicate. We then request that Tolman and Julie go to check on Natalie and Arthur before proceeding to wash our face in this water. And is it really a survival horror game without at least one ridiculously long for no particular reason ass ladder? Anyways, we finally arrive at the bunker that Crow has been living in, so we take some shells and a medkit as the two speak once more.
Mr. Crow, I'm here. I'm in your lab.
Hello, Elaine.
Open the door.
I will. But first, please pick up the glass vials I've laid out on the counter.
Why?
Please.
Fine.
Oh yeah, Mara Forrest isn't a real person. Our protagonist here actually has been Elaine Marshall the entire time. And if you don't remember, she's kind of the 15-year-old girl that got Crow Country shut down in the first place. But we collect the vials and go through these metal doors. We finally meet Edward Crow, and he seems to be in pretty bad shape. He states that Elaine first became infected 2 years ago, and she says that it's worsening. Elaine even escaped from the hospital just to come here and tell Crow something directly to his face.
Mr. Crow, I'm going to die of this infection. We tried everything. Nothing works. It's going to kill me.
This location is called the Pool, and it's being used as a gateway, and any human that attempts to travel through gets an instant lobotomy. It's basically a portal to the future, and in the future shit's pretty fucked up. He gives Elaine a piece of paper and says that if he reemerges from the pool, he wants us to put him out of his misery. So he rocks his chair back and falls into the pool as the roots all retract. A then giant and disfigured Edward Crow emerges. This fight is rather simple. All you really need to do is avoid these rocks and shoot his ass a couple of times before he's defeated. He pleads for our mercy one last time before Elaine introduces Crow to the sweet release that is death. We are then prompted to use the medicine in the vials as the camera pans out.
Staring into the flames, I feel something. It's a curious mixture of hope and dread. Maybe everything will be okay, and maybe it won't.
that was Crow Country. This game is an absolute treat for any survival horror fan. It pays so much homage to its predecessors in such a unique and charming way. I'd say that Crow Country's strongest elements are its story, its puzzles, and its art style. I think that the story is just the perfect amount of interesting without being too confusing, especially if this is your first introduction to the genre. The puzzles are actually very interesting and never felt too unfair to me or had too dumb of solutions in my personal opinion. The art style makes this game so unique from everything else in the genre. I mean, really, the game is just stunning to look at. I love the juxtaposition between the cute aesthetics and the horrifying amusement park that is Crow Country. If you're ever bored or want an indie title to play, I'd highly recommend this game to any survival horror veteran or newcomer. It's only about 5 to 6 hours long, so if you've got that survival horror itch, I'd say this is the perfect game for you. I think the only complaint that I really have is that the normal mode gave the player way too many resources to play with. Like, I always felt stocked up on everything. I mean, obviously you heard me say so many fucking items in this video. Yeah, I mean, I hope you like that Silent Hill item sound. I hope you do. I hope you like that one. But yeah, that's really all I have for today. I would really appreciate it if you could possibly leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me and the video a lot more than you know. But with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Love ya. Bye.